Alrighty then, so we are going to check out something from our first video from Casual Geographic before, right? What the fuck? There's no goddamn way that I wasn't already subscribed to this guy, right? Anyway, what was it? Oh yeah, so we're gonna watch the Predator we still can't figure out, for the CC, right? Yeah, I've always liked this guy's videos. This one just came out. I haven't seen it yet, so let's see. And I know for a fact that like he seems to be okay with, again, people doing react content to his stuff because, let's be fair, Cutesy Nero, Rosie Belmu, a bunch of other people have done reacts to his stuff, so there's that. Oh wait, shit, there was a Shoe on Head video I was supposed to do a react to. I'll do that later.
Plenty of people are terrified of the ocean, and arguably no other animal embodies thalassophobia more than the predator time seemingly left behind.
If anyone here is actually, like, afraid of the ocean, let me know. I don't personally like the ocean. I just, not to sound like a fucking Star Wars character, but I'm not a big fan of sand, and, like, the beaches where I live are very sandy, right? I'm not a big fan of, like, the texture of, like, the salt water. I've always preferred more like a freshwater river or lake. But yeah, if anyone here is uncomfortable with the ocean, let me tell me why.
Most people will never see one alive, yet they remain one of the most nightmarish and uncanny, but also complicated and least understood apex predators on the planet.
Again, people say this. They're like, this is like a uniquely disturbing like animal, and I'm like, is it though? Is it? Like, it doesn't seem particularly uncanny to me, to be perfectly honest, right? It seems definitely out of place, but it's like, this doesn't necessarily mean uncanny. I don't know. I don't get the same visceral, like, recoil reaction some people apparently do from the leopard seal.
In fact, the first time you ever heard of a leopard seal, it was probably giving Happy Feet hell. Or the pebble and the penguin, in which case, make sure those doctor appointments are booked. You're getting up there. Or maybe it was... If you or a loved one was a victim of that jump scare, you may be entitled to financial compensation. Not from me, though. The penguin paralysis demon is incredibly feared for an animal we don't know that much about. Hey, what's a sea leopard's favorite fast food? Popeyes. But there's a whole nother side to the assault sausage. One that just might bring you to tears if you watch long enough. This video isn't to make you fear or hold hate, but understand and even appreciate the alpha seal, not for just what it is.
Yeah, you just look at this thing, it's like, this is a fascinating animal. Just, okay, Kura says, scared, no, but I would rather throat a cactus before going into the deeper part of the ocean. Well, I mean, fair, right? It also depends on, like, how exactly you're going there, right? It's like, okay, we're gonna take a submarine down to a certain part of the ocean. Like, hold on, I need to check to see who's actually built the submarine, because if it's like an Ocean Gate submarine, you can like you can absolutely like just like fornicate yourself with an iron stick, right? But like, I'm not a big diver anyway, so it's like none of this shit really fascinates me. It's like I have no interest in the water. But the animals in the water, one thing, right? Like what's actually in the water, fine. But I'm not a big diver personally. Sea puppy? I mean, yeah, right? Sea puppy.
But how and why, and all I ask is that y'all hear me out. But there is no why as to why people find leopard seals optically disturbing. Few other animals pass the eye test for being that terrifying. The leopard seal looks like a mammalian mosasaur, a prehistoric predator with a permasmirk.
I don't really get what, like, sideways throw cactus. Fair enough. I don't really get what people see as, like, because, like, you could say the same thing about, like, wolves or bears or lions, right? You could say the exact same about those animals. It's like, these are very obviously dangerous animals that are, like, carnivorans, right? And I think pinnipeds are part of the carnivora order, if I remember correctly. I might be wrong about that. I'll have to double check, but I think they are part of the carnivora order. So it's like, yeah, this doesn't seem uniquely disturbing. It just seems like an animal to me. Spartanbot says, I don't like the open ocean. I hate not being able to see the land. Same issue going out on the Great Lakes. Fair. Akianella says, I've always wanted to go on a cruise. I'll probably cry again at seeing whales in person. Jin, fair enough. Just don't get drunk on cruises because, let's be perfectly honest, some of the people who go missing on cruises, some of these people, they just got drunk and they went overboard and no one noticed, right? It's a bit of a sad way to die, but you know, so there are people who die that way.
And if you think I'm exaggerating, you haven't seen or better yet heard what happens when one hauls out near humans.
Yeah, that's definitely an infrasound call, which means you're probably going to feel that deep into your bones, to be perfectly honest. But, you know, these aren't the only animals that do this, right? Yeah, sure, other carnivorans don't really use infrasound in the same way, but it's like, I mean, elephants use infrasound. You can literally feel when elephants are using infrasound, right? like there are several birds that do it, right? Cassowaries, there's a reason to be afraid of cassowaries, right? Just like there is a reason to be potentially afraid of this thing, not because of how it looks, but because, again, this is a dangerous animal, right? It is a predator. You know, these things are fairly aggressive, but, you know, the look and the sound itself aren't the things that, like, set me off. It's just, like, I wouldn't want to be near this thing just because of, like, what it actually is, not because of what it looks like, right? Let's see. Spartanbot says, I think it's the nose/snout shape. You know, fair enough, probably. I'd have to look into it, though. Kielnala says, all animal are cute, even the dangerous ones, but in a way, carnivores are safer because you know how they react. Behaviors, herbivores, not so much. Yeah, that's one thing. Also, it's easier to negotiate with a carnivore than it is a herbivore, right? It's easier to convince a carnivore that you're not worth the caloric expenditure to eat than it is to convince a wildebeest that it's not worth killing you to stay alive, right? It is much easier to deal with a carnivore than it is herbivores. Kianala says, I mean to say cry again because I cried when I saw them at SeaWorld. I mean, fair, right? That's entirely fair.
That's crazy, right? You can hear it in your chest. Another thing is, people often suffer from a lack of scale with sea animals. They don't know how huge tuna are.
Yeah, again, this is something I didn't really, like, I was aware. Like, I already knew how big tuna actually are. There's a reason, like, there's an actual culinary sword that was invented in Japan specifically for tuna, right?
How big dolphins get.
Yeah, again, anyone who doesn't think dolphins are large animals is just, like, I don't know. I always thought that was, like, an actual, like, common sense thing. Like, I thought it was, like, common knowledge.
And that leopard seals can grow to 12 feet long and weigh over 1,200 pounds.
Yeah, again, this is not news to me particularly, but, like, I could see how people wouldn't necessarily know this one. The dolphin one, dolphins are well enough known public, you know, in the culture. I would have assumed that the fact that dolphins are actually fairly decently large animals would have been common knowledge, but apparently that's not actually the case.
Trust me, there's a worse picture than this down the line. Chances are, you've never looked a leopard seal in the mouth, because then you'd have to be surgically removed from your therapist's couch. Those teeth are built like that for a reason we'll get into soon, but this internal mugshot may be coming to a beach near you.
Oh, those are fascinating teeth.
Abolish any idea that an air-breathing barracuda is confined to Antarctica.
The head shape is kind of primitive. You know what? Kind of. Yeah. It depends on the angle, because some angles the head does just look like a carnivoran without ears, and in other angles it does look a little bit more primitive. I can give you that.
As they've been found as far as Antarctica, New Zealand, South Africa, Argentina, the What the Falklands, and more. There's at least one leopard seal aware of platypus, and that's insane to me. So is the idea that this apex pinniped could be pulling up.
I don't know what the fuck this guy's problem is, but this guy's a fucking idiot. Oh my god. Kid also says there are huge sea animals. Yeah. Spartanbot says people always mix up seals and sea lions. Yeah, they do. Like, what the fuck is the problem with this guy walking up behind a leopard seal and they'd be like, oh yeah, I'm gonna fucking go and pet it from behind, spook it. Absolute retard.
To appear by you. That would raise the hairs on Caillou. And even with many roles as the op to a penguin protagonist, people have spoken on the horror of sea leopards for centuries. Going back to the early 1900s, explorer Ernest Shackleton wrote about an Antarctica expedition where at one point, one of his men was chased across the ice by an aggressive, believed to be 12-foot leopard seal. The man thought he was in the clear when the massive seal dove back into the water. But then the sea leopard tracked him by following his shadow under the ice and ambushing and nearly snatching him at the next gap in the ice.
Now that's a cool degree of like intelligence right there, right? Again, the awareness that like, oh yes, the shadow corresponds to the thing that I'm interested in, right? And knowledge that, okay, there are gaps in the ice that they're going to have to make stops at. So I just have to track the shadow to a particular hole in the ice if I'm going to go investigate this, right? That is a decent amount of intelligence for, again, a pinniped.
And Thomas Ordley's likely would have been a statistic if one of the crew hadn't shot the seal before it could reach him. In 1985, explorer Gareth Wood was walking across a thin ice layer when a Jurassic jump scare broke out of the ice, clamping its jaws on his leg and nearly
Okay, Neil the seal is an elephant seal. This is a leopard seal, right? Like Neil the seal is in Tasmania. Yeah, he's in Tasmania. But like again, he's an elephant seal. That's a categorically different and, to be fair, larger seal than this is.
Dragging him into the water, and he was only saved by his mates kicking at the seal's head with boot crampons. And that's what separates sea leopards from a lot of other predators.
You can look at the teeth though and realize like that would be a gnarly bitch to get bitten by.
The vast majority of sharks will ignore you, but whether out of curiosity or something else, leopard seals will boldly swim right into your space. It's the closest you can get to an encounter with a murder mermaid. It was right there. Most times they genuinely...
Is it the lips? Is it the shape of the lips that might be setting people off? I'm trying. Every time the face shows up, I'm like, what is the thing that's throwing people off? And I'm thinking maybe it has something to do with the lip shape, but I'm not entirely sure.
Seem curious and like...
Let's see. Fushizi says, I think there's one... I just read that.
Your presence. But other times, they do the kind of things that led to researchers equipping inflatable boats with protective guards because of how often a 12-foot vibe check would bite through it. You only get away with that as an apex predator, and present tense plesiosaur is absolutely apex.
That wouldn't be a plesiosaur. Plesiosaurs are the ones with the longer necks. This would be more of a pliosaur, but you know, I get what you're saying.
They will eat anything. Those freakish teeth are actually for catching krill, and having trident-shaped teeth helps filter them out of the water.
Oh shit, they filter feed. Okay, I actually didn't know that.
Krill that could be nearly 50% of their diet. Of course, the leopard seal's list...
It's the eyes. Oh, you know what? That might do it.
That's much more on it, including often other seals like fur seals, and even their closest cousin, the crab eater. Obviously, they'll eat...
Y'all really gonna just watch this? Yes, we're really gonna just watch this. In this pick, it's the eyes. Interesting. This might just be one of those things where it's like, again, the uncanny valley is slightly different from like each individual, because it seems like this is like an uncanny valley kind of situation. Where it's like, in this case though, it's not setting, none of these images have set me off yet. Like, I have no idea what it is that I'm supposed to be, like, except for like what y'all are telling me, obviously, right? But it's like, I'm struggling to have to think when y'all tell me this stuff. It's like, okay, what about it specifically is setting people off?
Fish, and in New Zealand that can include sharks. Leopard seals also grieve squid. One was caught with a sea snake, and there's even one case of a leopard seal attempting to take out a minke whale.
That's fucking cool, actually.
Even the ocean-star predator, the orca, rarely resorts to hunting an aquatic velociraptor, because this is not the average seal. But if you know this seal, you know the most famous victims of leopard seals are penguins, even though penguins aren't even the biggest part of their diet.
What fucking cartoonish bullshit is this? Hold on, I gotta rewind it. That was actually pretty funny.
Leopard seals are a lot more calculated than most think, and will camp themselves right at the ice's edge where they know...
Hold on. Apparently my arrow key is tied to the fucking sound thing.
Seals are penguins, even though penguins...
What a fucking unlucky bird. Just like jumps right out of the water and into the fucking literal lion's den, right?
Penguins aren't even the biggest part of their diet. Leopard seals are a lot more calculated than most think, and will camp themselves right at the ice's edge where they know is the penguin's entry point.
Yeah, these are incredibly smart animals. Oh, I just realized I've been fucking like... I should move myself over here. Wait.
Pretty much makes them a mammalian crocodile. With penguins, they'll either ambush them from below, or with a top speed of 25 miles per hour, they'll get into a police chase with an unlucky penguin. The leopard seal abuses this matchup so bad that not only will they surplus skill and murk more penguins than they eat, they'll eventually make a game out of it. Leopard seals have been seen chasing down penguins into exhaustion and seemingly toying with the bird. They'll traumatize the penguin within an inch of its life and then just shove off, like it was a sick joke. But it's when
Well, I mean, in that case, like, it didn't just decide. I mean, some of the more intelligent animals can be, like, quite cruel and, like, again, toy with other animals. So that, you know, it's not entirely surprising. That just suggests to me this is probably a lot smarter than what we give it credit for. Keelanala says, honestly, I don't mind pitch black eyes or red eyes. It's the pure white eyes that set me off going, nope, want none of that. That's fair.
leopard seals aren't playing that things get R-rated, and it all goes back to those teeth. Those teeth could maul the grizzlies, and gives them a demon's headshot. But they lack the shearing teeth carnivores need to slice prey, and that's why you see them body birds by slamming and suplexing them against the water.
This is why you see sharks do this sometimes too, right? Sharks will actually go up towards the surface after certain large catches, and they will bash their head against the ceiling of the water, right? Because the surface tension works the same way when you're trying to thrash something out of the water versus thrash something in the water. Either way, you know, the surface tension actually works to help like bashing it against a wall and help to break it up. Spartanbot says, so they are like dolphins and otters, right? Pure white, you say. God damn it.
Leopard seal will thrash a penguin until it genuinely...
Yeah, like right there. Sharks will do all the exact opposite. Well, they'll like, again, instead of smashing it against the top of the water, they'll often smash it against from above. They'll smash it against the top of the water from below the water surface for the same effect.
gets degloved, and the penguin skinned and flayed every possible way gets eaten. So with all that, Stevie Wonder could see how the king seal of the South got its bad rep, but wild sea leopards do have one thing that not even killer whales do, and that's a human body. There's only one case in recorded human history of a
Well, I mean, in all fairness, this guy jumps around, and it's like, I don't know where to put myself in the video to not, like, obscure him or the video. But, I mean, the orcas do actually have a human body, right? The SeaWorld, right? Just saying.
leopard seal killing a person, but it's also one of the most brutal animal attack stories I've ever shared on this channel, so for obvious reasons, viewer discretion is advised. Kirsty Brown was a 28-year-old biologist for the British Antarctic Survey, and on July 22, 2003, she and a buddy were snorkeling near Rothera Research Station. They were studying the impact of iceberg scouring on the environment when the leopard seal studying Kirsty violently made an impact on her. At this point, nobody had ever lost their life to a sea leopard, but there were documented instances of aggression.
I don't know, that one about, again, the leopard seal tracking them from under the ice really does sound like an attempt was made, right? Just saying, right? That one does sound like an attempt was made, if the report is true.
And as a rule, nobody was allowed in the water if a leopard seal was spotted. The problem was, no one saw this leopard seal until Kirsty screamed and disappeared, only to resurface with her head in the seal's jaws. From there, the abnormally sized seal would drag her deep underwater, release her long enough to just almost resurface, just to grab and drown her again. All while...
Yeah, these, okay, that is actually a freaky picture. I'll give you this one. This one actually is kind of freaky. This one is definitely an off-putting picture. But, yeah. What was it? Like orcas, they play with their food, right? They play and kill their food. Cats play and kill their food. The only ones that don't really do this are bears, right? But bears also don't have the same hunting and killing instinct as like other animals do. Like they don't really kill their prey and then eat it. They just eat the prey while it's alive, right?
Mauling her with bone-crushing bites. Eventually, Kirsty and the seal disappeared, and the last time her dive buddy saw her alive, she was 20 feet underwater, desperately fighting to break free, while the apex seal held her by a fin. Eventually, the seal resurfaced, over a half-mile from where they were last seen, and after bashing the predator in the head with a shovel, the rescue crew fended the seal off and finally pulled Kirsty into the boat. Tragically, as you can tell, despite several CPR attempts, Kirsty Brown would be pronounced dead right there. Kirsty's body was recovered with over 40...
I'm going to go back to read this. Let's see. Antarctic researcher killed. Leopard seal attack kills 28-year-old marine biologist. This was in the 23rd of July, 2003. In a tragedy that has stunned the Antarctic research community, British Antarctic Survey marine biologist Christy Brown was killed by a leopard seal while undertaking survey work in the Arctic Peninsula on the 22nd of July. Brown was snorkeling with another researcher near the UK's Rothera research station when the seal attacked without warning and pulled her underwater. Brown was rescued quickly, but efforts to resuscitate her failed. Brown, 28, trained in geology and oceanography, worked as a diver and research scientist in Greenland and Australia before joining BAS's Life at the Edge. Stresses the thresholds, or latest research program last summer. Her project was aimed at investigating the effects of iceberg disturbances on plant and animal communities inhabiting the nearshore Antarctic seabed. She nearly completed the first phase, which involved layering out 500 concrete and plastine markers to monitor iceberg gouging on the seabed. BAS ecophysiologist Lloyd Peck, head of the latest program, describes Brown as full of energy and enthusiasm, a good scientist who worked with very hard and could do boring, mundane aspects of work with a smile on her face. He says he wished all scientists were like Christy and is determined to keep her project going. Okay. Well, there's the news report.
Kirsty Brown would be pronounced dead right.
I think the flippers made the seal think they were huge penguins. I don't necessarily think that might be the case because, again, only one person has died. And, like, again, anyone who did this also had huge flippers, right? And also, really, the huge flippers aren't really a thing that penguins are, like, visually spotted for, to be perfectly honest. Like, the first thing you spot on a penguin isn't really the flippers. It's like like the foot, the flippers on the feet, right? It's the wing flippers that are the things that catch your eye, as well as like the shape of the animal, none of which seems to correspond here. These animals seem to have really good eyesight underwater, so I highly doubt it was one of those cases of mistaken identity. It could have just been an animal being territorial and aggressive, to be perfectly honest. That is a thing that happens sometimes. Robert Kinley says 2003, same year as U.S. invasion of Iraq. It's gotcha. fair enough. Kionala says, not to mention the diving suit looks like a penguin's body too. I don't know that that's necessarily true, right? Because animals aren't necessarily as like dumb as people think they are, right? Most animals can tell the difference between, like a human being in a wetsuit, even if they don't know it's a human being, in a penguin. So, and these seem to be abnormally smart, even for pinnipeds. So, I don't think it may have been a case of mistaken identity. I think it very well could just be this thing didn't like these people in its territory and it decided to lash out.
There. Kirsty's body was recovered with over 40 bite wounds, and her dive computer revealed something arguably worse. During the 10 minutes of hell, the leopard seal had dragged Kirsty to a maximum depth of 70 meters. That's 230 feet. But personally, the most disturbing part was Kirsty was already an exceptionally small human at 5'1", 120 pounds, and eyewitnesses said this was an exceptionally massive seal.
This is a weird way to say it, right? She was already an exceptionally small, like a small human. It's like that just seems like a very unnatural articulation of that sentence. Maybe I'm being a little bit nitpicky, right? Breeding season? I don't know. Maybe that might have been part of it, but I'm not entirely sure. So just aggression. Sometimes animals do just get. Sometimes animals are just ornery. And then, like, they take out their aggression on something that they can actually do damage to. It's a thing that happens, right? I mean, it happens with herbivores more often than it does with predators, because predators have to consider the issue of, like, if I get hurt, then I can't hunt, and therefore I starve to death, right? Whereas, like, prey animals have the exact opposite incentive of, if I don't risk it, then I might become the biscuit, right? Well, why just her? I don't know. Sometimes things just happen, to be perfectly honest.
estimated to have been 4.5 meters, that's nearly 15 feet long,
That's fucking huge, by the way.
and well over 1,300 pounds, which I genuinely don't want to believe, even if it was based off the seal's size relative to the boat. Because not only would that mean a 5-foot woman was mauled by one of the largest leopard seals ever seen, but this is what that size disparity would have looked like. There's no fucking way.
Oh my god. Okay, that is. I need to hear that crash out one more time. I know, somber story. I just need to hear that crash out one more time.
Seals ever seen, but this is what that size disparity would have looked like. There's no fucking way.
A valid crash out. To be perfectly honest, if I saw this thing coming at me in the water, I'd be like, well, it was nice knowing you all, but I am the gone, right? Oh my god. PJ says, have you ever seen that video of a seal slapping a man with an octopus? Actually, I might have. I just didn't really think about it. Oh my god. Robert Kinley said, me big, you small. Kionala says, predators go after the smallest in the herd. Yeah, because they don't want to get hurt, because if they get hurt, they could die, right? But, yeah, you know what? Like a mammal version of a mosasaur or a pliosaur. Yeah, I can kind of see it. I can hear it right. I can see it right now. Yeah, fair enough.
And since no one...
One more time, just because the rule of threes.
But this is what that size disparity would have looked like. There's no fucking way.
Oh my god. Robert Kinley says, seals are fucking terrifying, so is the ocean. I have swam with great whites. I mean, fair, right? Like, I've never actually gone into the open ocean, so it's like I don't really have a reason to be afraid of the sea. I don't exactly live near the sea, right? And, like, I'm not afraid to get into the water. It's just I don't really have any good reason to go to the ocean, right? That's like, why? What would be the reason for me to go to the ocean? Like, I'm not interested in anything there. So it's like, there's no reason for me to go. But like, I could totally see, again, it's like, yeah, considering this thing might be in the ocean somewhere, this cryptid looking ass thing, right? This, like, yeah, I can see how some people would be like, yeah, nah, fuck that shit, right? It's a little bit of megalophobia and thalassophobia rolled into one. There ain't no fucking way, as he said, right? Truer words had never been spoken.
No one ever asked the leopard seal why. The most popular theory is that her size, black dry suit, and fins caused the colossal carnivore to clock Kirsty as a penguin or fur seal.
I think the seal one is a more plausible answer, but I don't really think that this is the case. It's like when people are saying, it's like, oh yeah, sharks sometimes attack surfers because they think they're sea turtles, and I'm like, I don't buy that at all. If you said a seal, then yeah, sure, maybe that's a much better answer. But sharks have a lot better eyesight underwater than people give them credit for. And again, we're assuming that there's mistaken identity when it's just more likely, again, it could be that the animal was ornery and then someone just happened to get caught in the crosshair. This happens all the time in nature with other animals. It's not unique to sharks, right? Or in the case of, like, it could be it was an exploratory, it was like trying to see whether or not that thing actually is edible. Again, this also happens with other animals that are not sharks, right? Most sharks may not be interested in trying human beings out, but some of them are going to be interested in that. And again, that just leads to devastating consequences for the poor bastard who happens to roll the unlucky lottery for that number. Yeah, it could be either or. It doesn't sound like this seal tried to eat her. It just sounds like this seal was being extremely territorial. So again, it just boils down to animal was mad, animal lashed out, someone died. This kind of thing happens.
And in all her struggling, flailing, and failing to get away, all Kirsty managed was to act like prey. Which sounds wild victim blaming, and I swear I'm not. There's a reason there's no jokes in this section. This was genuinely one of the worst animal-related deaths I've read about. Imagine being mauled by a...
And that is another thing, like for predatory animals, oftentimes animals signal that like they are prey by freaking the fuck out and running away, and it catches the predator's attention as like, oh wait, that thing's running away, it must be food, right? But at the same time, it's like, if this thing didn't try to eat her, or if it didn't eat her, then it almost certainly was just being territorial, right? And I'm waiting to see whether or not this thing actually was taking a pound of flesh off the body, or if it was, again, it just drowned this woman, because again, that would indicate territoriality.
Bear, but also while being waterboarded. In fact, let's get even more descriptive. Kirsty Brown spent the last 10 minutes of her life fighting an animal nearly triple her length and 10 times her weight, while being severely mauled to the head and being brought tortuously close to the surface before being pulled again over 200 feet into a freezing abyss. Not only could the violent pressure changes cause a burst eardrum or even an embolism, her compromised wetsuit,
The bends,
would have introduced Antarctic ice-chilled water directly to her skin. In the most respectful way, I really hope she blacked out or went into shock, because that is a nightmare Final Destination couldn't dream up. Kirsty Brown would have an island posthumously named after her, and her death led to more safety measures and protocols being implemented.
Hold on. Kionalo says sharks can be sea puppies too. True. Robert Kinley said it's like walking into the Amazon. Robert Kinley says leather back turtles are huge. Oh yeah, they're huge. Again, I don't think people really understand how big some of these animals actually are.
But there was another consequence of a horrific demise. The much more strict regulations now meant many of the biologists trying to learn more about the seals were now forbidden from entering the water to study them.
Yeah, because it's almost certainly a liability issue for the organization itself, right? It's not just, oh yeah, we got to be a little bit more cautious. It's like, oh, if this happens again, we're going to be in a lot of serious fucking trouble.
Something many like dive guide Kelvin Murray would call an overreaction. Suddenly, an animal we barely knew much about was now basically impossible to learn more about. It was a lot like the stingray. Stingrays are rarely aggressive, and less than 5 people in human history have lost their life to one in Australia. But because one of them was Steve Irwin, you had an entire generation ready to punch out an aquatic placemat. Even though the circumstances of his death were insanely bad luck, and Khaki Jesus would have passed twice if he saw the stingray hate. Only one person has ever died to a sea leopard. It's just that the attack.
I'm pretty sure this, by the way, was a troll, right? Just... like, I'm pretty sure this was a shit post, to be perfectly honest. Just read this. About to touch a stingray. Should I punch it just to let it know Steve Irwin still got shooters out here? This just sounds like a fucking troll, right? This sounds like someone, like, being a little bit of a shitter. I mean, to be fair, I've also been proven wrong about how dumb people can be, right? But, I was like, again, I think that this was done for a bit. I do not think that this person was genuinely considering this. I think he was making fun of I think some people and like their disposition against stingrays at the time. See, Kionado says, oh god, Final Destination, the only thing on my mind when I flew on an airplane for the first time, right? Robert Kinley says, just think about how you would do with a jaguar. I would not do with a jaguar. It's actually quite simple, right? And the thing with jaguars are like the only cat that actually can kill their prey by crushing its skull between its like jaws and be like, well, I'm gonna die, and at least this is gonna be a fairly quick death, right?
Passed twice if he saw the stingray hate. Only one person has ever died to a sea leopard. It's just that the attack was so brutal that, in the pro-penguin media, meant a blubber assault weapon got demonized to hell. To be fair, with the things I said they'll do to penguins, other seals, and even humans, how could you not call this Ice Cube mammalian missile crisis a sea demon? I wouldn't blame you for being afraid, but at least give the other side of the leopard seal a chance.
If he can learn to forgive, so can you. Again, this is almost certainly a bit. You cannot convince me that this is a real thing, right? Fushizi, should I punch, not should I punch, right? No, it's like Fushizi, I should punch, not should I punch. Yeah, fair enough. Fushizi, but I agree, it's a shit post. Yeah, there's no way that this is fucking like an honest post, right? Just read this shit. Over a year ago, I threatened you out of anger over the death of a lost one. A death that you were not responsible for. Today, I've returned to make things right. To end the cycle of violence. It's what Steve would have wanted. And I'm sorry, and I love you, Water Pancake. This is clearly a shitpost. This is a joke. It's a funny joke, but it's clearly a joke.
I was not lying when I said a pool full of sharks will ignore you, but a leopard seal will get right up in your face and conduct an investigation in your personal space. Kirsty might have been a tragic exception because aggressive or predatory encounters with humans normally happened at the ice's edge, aka the leopard seal's favorite ambush spot. But almost every time a leopard seal has approached a human already in the water, they're doing it from a place of curiosity. That is really weird for a predator. Like, for all their bad PR, bears usually avoid people. And an experiment found that even the top predators in Africa hightail it whenever they hear human. But a giga seal will study us the same.
I mean, to be fair, a lot of these animals have like direct like they actually have evolutionary and like experiential pressures to avoid human beings, right? So like there's a thing there, but it sounds like again these things live in largely Antarctica, and they may be like they may have gone to places like New Zealand and Australia. And like again, like apparently there was one that was even in Guatemala. It's like holy fuck, that's out of like that's far up, right? But these things don't really seem to have that much real experience with human beings, so there would be no reason for them to have a natural fear response. Same thing with like the dodo, right? The dodo didn't have any like actual experience with human beings, so there was no natural fear response of human beings. Water pancake is water pancake, right? But you would go swimming. The ocean is. But you would go swimming. The ocean is the Amazon. Well, I don't know that I would go to the Amazon either, to be perfectly honest. Like, I'm actually not that interested in Brazil. See, Fushizi says, I love leopard seals. They are so adorable. I would agree. I think these things are generally pretty cute. Jaguars are friend-shaped. Oh my god. Fushizi, be careful, right?
The way we do them. That's weird. One seal made it even weirder. In 2006, photographer Paul Nicklin took a trip to
You gotta remember, again, these things apparently like filter feed and they hunt penguins, right? These seem like they are necessarily opportunistic hunters. And again, this does seem to support my theory that it was a attack of aggression, like of territoriality, because again, she got attacked by the ice shelf, which is where a lot of these animals apparently hunt their penguins, right? Which is something they need to survive. So then, you know, obviously you're there, you're potentially disturbing its hunting grounds. It doesn't want you there. It's going to make sure that one way or another that you're not there disturbing it anymore. I think this was just an act of territoriality. I don't think it was predation. Captain Rudy says, I had to go AFK. What did I miss? It depends on how far along you were. More leopard seal, more leopard than seal, if you ask me, right? Long story short, we learned about the sole known person who's been killed by a leopard seal, and I'm pointing out it's like this just sounds like territoriality. Again, she got attacked in an area where they usually hunt the penguins, and it didn't seem to try to eat her. It just killed her, and then again, it seems like a deterrent tactic, which is something some predators do, right? So it seems like an issue of territoriality with this animal.
Antarctica to hopefully find the steroid seal. Funny thing is, leopard seals are hard to find. They're hard for you to find. To them,
yeah, you can just see that, like, again, thing just kind of fade into existence as it gets closer to you. It's very well camouflaged.
You're easy. It was
about an hour. Probably a lot then.
It wasn't long until Paul had a giant females are bigger by the way, leopard seal circling his zodiac, and it was at this moment he ignored every primitive instinct and ancestral alarm and got in the water and braced himself. The seal with a head bigger than a grizzly bear's made a beeline towards Paul, and right when Paul feared the worst and held up his camera as a feeble defense, the she leopard stopped and just sized him up. Science says if you're able to stay calm and hold your ground, a leopard seal will go from possibly aggressive to curious, and she even got close enough to study her reflection in his camera. It's like her internal monologue was saying, wait, you're not afraid. Why aren't you afraid? What are you? Then
exactly, it's like this thing is used to being an apex predator, right? So it's like, if you're not afraid of it, then you're not prey. But if you're not prey, then you're not a predator, like an orca, which, to be fair, they already covered that orcas don't really hunt these things. Then it's like, what in God's name are you, right? So it's like, that actually might genuinely be a good, like, analog to what's going on in their head.
She got bored and swam away.
It's a little humanized, but like, it's probably as close as human beings can get to understanding it.
But then came back with a live penguin, which she released in front of Paul. Obviously, Paul didn't take the offer, so the predator got another penguin, and then another one. And for the next 4 days, the same species that had mauled a woman to death would now be waiting to greet Paul whenever he entered the water in an attempt to feed him.
Could you fucking imagine the amount of fear that's going through that fucking penguin, right? Just look at that shit. I'm gonna just rewind that for a bit.
Mauled a woman to
that thing is like, it's literally in the jaws of its predator, right? Being held underwater.
Death would now be waiting to.
Now it gets the chance to take a breath, which, by the way, these things apparently like to drown their food, but...
Greet Paul whenever he entered the...
to be very careful not to kill this thing. Like, that thing has to be in like absolute terror.
Water in an attempt to feed him. I want y'all to really understand what was happening here. This she leopard.
You are small, but I am not, right? Oh my god. I gotta edit my my model because my lower height is like 109 centimeters. And I gotta get that, I gotta get on that, like a tiny character from League of Legends build design, right? Captain Rudy said, that goes for most animals. If you show you're not afraid, they'll leave you alone. One thing I push about dogs to my fellow delivery drivers. I have an actually really funny story about that. So, I used to do door-to-door sales, which was a terrible fucking job. And I was out with a buddy. I was never very good at it. But I was out with like a partner because like we were doing like a obviously 2-person door-to-door sales, and I was not having a good day. I was having a fucking really bad day, and a dog got out from like across the road and started like it was on the same side of the road, but like from like way far down. Ended up getting out and it like charged at us like all the way down the road, and I'm just like, you know what? I don't really give a shit, and I just continued to walk forward. Like I could not give a shit. And the other guy like broke away. He's like, oh my god. And he started running, and the dog fucking ignored me. It went straight for him, so he had to jump a fence, but then there was a dog on the other side of that fence, so he had to jump the fence again, and he had to like actually stand, because it was a pretty high fence. The dog wasn't getting him, so he had to fucking like straddle and like be on the side of the fence. I just called the cops. I was like, I just called the cops, like, yeah, this is our location. Yeah, there's some dogs. We're gonna need you to come out here because there's a dog trying to attack my coworker, right? Robert Kinley says, this footage is terrifying, dude. What the fuck? Yeah, right? But yeah, so it really is the case where it's like your disposition does affect how the animal treats you.
Was going out and tiring penguins and bringing them to Paul. And when Paul didn't eat, she'd bring increasingly lower HP penguins.
This kind of reminds me again of like cats, where they bring you they bring you like their kill, right? Because it turns out they are known to sometimes, like, again, it's like a tribute, right? This thing is like, hold on, here is an offering, friend, right? And it's like
she'd bring beat up, barely alive penguins, half-eaten penguins. At one point, Paul had 5 past tense penguins floating around his head. Paul would even swear that the leopard seal seemed genuinely disappointed with his lack of effort. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I can only think of one other time you had a wild predator straight up offering food to a person, and it was killer whales. And at least orcas have a history of hunting alongside people. We're not talking about a trained animal or one habituated to humans. We're talking about a wild predator going out of its way to provide for a person. That's not normal. Seals are the mermaids of bears. Imagine a polar bear door dashing your dinner. That's not even the only thing leopard seals and orcas have in common. Leopard seals are much smarter.
Yeah, polar bears are a fucking, like, those are a beast of an animal, right? Those are one of the few ones that actually go and actively hunt human beings when given the opportunity. Holy shit. Robert Kinley says, do you think your head could fit in its mouth? Oh no, that thing could very clearly, like, fit a person's head in its mouth. Yes. Fushisi said, cats do it because they're just flexing. This is how you do it. Keanu says, I guess sea leopards are more sea kitties. I mean, possibly. Captain Rudy says, my neighbor has a pit bull named Jax. When the dog knows me, like the dog knows me, but once in a while it won't recognize me and start barking at me and charging at me. Not an aggressive dog, all bark, no bite. I just look at him and say, hey, Jax, and he gets the most confused look on his face. It was absolutely hilarious. Yeah, fair enough.
More than the penguin media wants you to believe. Leopard seal handling manuals go out of their way to say they're smart enough to be trained, but intelligent enough to be stubborn, and they're prone to pout and act difficult like children. At the same time, they also say that ignoring a difficult seal is a pretty solid way to get them to cooperate. Leopard seals aren't just highly intelligent, they're deeply emotional creatures too. Nora was a leopard seal that made news because it was the first time scientists watched a modern-day mosasaur mourn. Nora had a pup that tragically passed away, and in grieving, Nora would stay with her lost child for over 20 days. Nora didn't just watch over her child, she'd move the body across the ice, carried it in her jaws, and even got aggressive whenever people would get too close to them. It wouldn't even be the only time, as in 2021, 23, and 24.
I'm interested to see if there's any kind of like studies about this particular behavior in animals.
Or, scientists documented the same mother doing the same thing with 3 different pups, which is a different kind of tragic. And again, the last time I can remember hearing something like this was when Orca J35, or Telequa, also grieved the death of her calf and couldn't let go. That's the problem with sea leopards being so understudied, because then you miss stuff like this. And that's not even mentioning arguably the most interesting thing about them. Leopard seals sing. Males will sing these beautifully haunting songs, and females in heat will respond with a song of their own. And if you haven't seen it, it's like an underwater opera or ballet from an animal that looks like a dinosaur. It's not just beautiful. Scientists actually studying these seal songs found that these songs are sequenced and structured a lot like human nursery rhymes. This guy. I really feel like leopard seals would have way better PR if they could actually survive in zoos. They're one of those animals that just don't work in captivity. They're like the great white sharks of mammals. Few leopard seals have ever been held in zoos, and the most—
Oh, hello, Zayla Zezia. Hold on, what happened? Hold on, I gotta catch up with the chat. Hello, Eustace, right? Eustace's rating with the party of 7. That's what happened. I was like, what the fuck happened? Right? Hello, Eustace. Thank you for the raid. Fushizi says, oh no, so they're brats. You ignore them to get them to behave? Yes, right? Thank you for the follow. Zayla or Zia? I have no idea how to say your name. I'm trying, right? Z Hunter 27, a lot of you got the raid notification, right? Looks like Eustace is just having a lot of fun in the chat. A lot of let's see. Keonel says a lot of animals do this with their stillborns. I honestly understandable, right? Cat raid. Well, cats happen to be one of my favorite animals, so I appreciate the raid, right? The cats are always welcome. Let's see. Okay. I have to tell you on voice. Fair enough. Wait a minute. Hold on. Let me check something. Okay, I might have been mispronouncing your name the entire time. Hold on. Oh no, Keck, Ned to talk on Discord, Mauer. Right. I need to talk on Discord, Mauer. Yes.
most famous case was in Sydney's Taronga. You know what I think about at night sometimes? Sometimes I think about Casey.
We're in the middle of our first reaction to Casual Geographic.
Casey was a male leopard seal, believed to be the only male ever kept in captivity. He was found as a pup, abandoned on a beach in Guatemala, injured, emaciated, and with shark bites. Casey was brought to Taronga for—
That's pretty fucking far from Antarctica. Just saying. Cats are your favorite animal, but you hardly ever watch Ember Paradox. I mean, yes, we are full of contradictions here, right? You got the first name right? Oh, fair enough. The second one is a mouthful. So if I was gonna try the second name, I would guess Zezaya. Zezaya? No, that would be my best guess.
treatment in 2007, where he joined female Brooke, who was rescued in 1999, and another female, Sabine, who got there a month before Casey. Now, I can already read the anti-zoo comments, so it's important to say that these seals could never be released back into the wild out of fear that if any of them were harboring any possible diseases, it'd wreck the already fragile wild population. So Taronga kept them to look after, and even possibly use as ambassadors. Because again, leopard seals can always use the PR. And as Casey matured, there was a hope that he could help breed the first ever leopard seal in captivity. But since Brooke died of an illness not long after Casey showed up, it'd have to be him and Sabine. There was just one big problem.
Oh, the H is silent. So it's not like okay, so it's a Z sound, so it's a Zezia, Zeziah. I'm gonna guess it would be Zeziah.
Male leopard seals sing for females, and as a seal found as a pup, Casey never learned his song. Taronga staff would play the recordings of adult leopard seal songs in hopes that Casey would find his. They even played saxophone for him. I'm not exactly sure why, but Casey wasn't above it. He genuinely seemed interested, so if he likes it, I love it. Tragically, Sabine would also be lost to an illness before Casey had the chance to court her. And as Casey finally did learn his song, he also died in 2014 after struggling with a prolonged sickness and mercifully being euthanized. That's how Casey's story ended. The last captive leopard seal ever. So at this point,
yeah, it seems like these animals are kind of like moose. Like if you ever go to a zoo, you'll notice you're never going to see a great white shark or a moose in like an aquarium or a zoo. And the reason why is because we just can't keep those fuckers alive. Like moose just do not survive in zoos. No matter how much you try to keep them alive, they just die. And it's the same thing with like great white sharks. It's like, but great white sharks die for a different reason.
I think you can see that.
Okay, so it's a Zeziah. Okay, so the okay, the pronunciation has been updated in my brain. Right, thank you.
Leopard seals are so much more than a penguin plot device. They've been lambasted and typecasted for as long as we've known about them. And
yes, that helps, Fuchizi. Yes, that helps.
Is that not what I was doing in the first half of this video? And honestly, I've been wanting to talk about that for a while. Skip to here if you don't want to hear the yap, but the biggest criticism I hear about myself is that I demonize animals, I spread misinformation to demonize them, and even that I've had a direct consequence on the conservation of those animals.
This seems like a incredibly bad faith take on Casual Geographic's material, right? Like, yes, he has to play up a bit because he has to make these things entertaining, but I can't think of a single video where he doesn't at the very end of the video, at the very least, say that, again, these are not monsters, these are animals, right? Or it's like, this is just how nature works, right? He's not demonizing any of these animals. Like, this is an incredibly bad faith criticism if anyone is making this criticism of Casual Geographic. I think anyone can go and, like, look up, again, the elephant video he's made, or any of the other videos that he's made about any of these other things, about sharks, about crocodiles, about all this other stuff. And it's pretty consistent. Again, it's like, yes, these animals can be dangerous, but they're not monsters, right? And it's like, they can be dangerous, but they're still worth protecting. And it's like, yeah, this is an incredibly bad faith criticism from people who honestly almost certainly don't watch his content, and as a result are almost certainly not like trying to make his content better, but are trying to coerce him into a particular position. So that would be my guess on that situation. Oh my God, Rudy, what the fuck did you just send me? One thing I've learned about dogs is that it's the ankle biters you gotta worry about. Last week I pulled up to a house that had, no joke, a dozen Great Pyrenees dogs. The leader was a male with a loud bark. He walked up to my as I got out, barking his head off at me. I can feel them. I just go, "Hey, puppy," and let him sniff me. Once he realized I wasn't a threat, he let me pet him, and all of a sudden all the other dogs wanted pets. The 2 times I got bit on the job were from ankle biters. Yeah, fair enough. Let's see. People want to believe that the animals are cute and friendly, and any stories about them being aggressive is misinformation and false. Like, what? Yeah.
And not a positive one. And honestly, whenever I would see that about myself, I get I'm not gonna lie, I'd get defensive and kind of hurt, because I feel like
I mean, you should get defensive about this, because it's just like objectively not true. It's a false statement, right? Again, like I would genuinely ask if you could think of any episode of Casual Geographic that he actually demonized an animal. Feel free to let me know which one it is, because I'm pretty sure in the video he like clarifies that like anything where he's talking about the animal being a bit of a monster is always a joke, and then he clarifies it towards the end of the video. It's like, okay, now that we've gotten through the danger portion of the video, now we can talk about the animal as an animal portion of the video, right? So it's like, again, taking things out of context for the purpose of hurting someone who's actually producing, right? It's an unproductive class attacking the productive class once again, right? And Yeah, like, again, I find this to be an incredibly bad faith criticism that it's sad he even has to respond to.
Always saying you can't moral scale an animal, that you can't judge or you can't put a morality microscope on a wild animal. A zebra that has to weave crocs, cats, and a predatory laugh track don't give two stripes about being a good person. And then I feel like I try to make the separation between, you know, these are the facts that I find interesting, and this is the casual comedic characterization of those.
Yeah, because it's casual geographic, right?
Those animals. But yeah, some corners of Twitter do not like me.
Oh, there is your first fucking problem, right? You gave Twitter any kind of, like, say in the conversation when you should have just told them, hey, you were basic. Yeah, nah. The majority of people who complain on Twitter are the unproductive class that just are envious of, again, the productive class. And he is part of the productive class. He is making something, right? He is making something people actually want.
Especially with the dolphin thing. And I don't even have Twitter. I really just wish more people actually watch this video all the way through, or at least at the 9:40 mark. Cause
that's such a funny thumbnail. That fucking Boondocks quote is absolutely fucking hysterical.
I feel like I touch on a lot of the things folks criticize me for. Also, just to defend myself a little bit, I will take accountability, but the whole internet dolphin hate thread was a thing long before me. That didn't start with me. Some of y'all are giving me way too much power by saying I single-handedly did that. I've always said that the facts, as far as I'm concerned, are true, and if they're not and I get something wrong, I feel like over the years I've shown that I have no problem coming out and correcting it.
Again, that's how we know it's a completely hello, it's Leyland fan. Thank you for the follow. Yeah, like, no, again, the people he's responding to are incredibly disingenuous. Because it's like, they don't actually do any research, they move off of feeling instead of fact, and they assume that their perception is identical to reality, which it is not, right? Anyone who's ever actually had to deal with the consequences of being wrong before knows that your perception is not identical to reality. And you need to be held accountable for when your ideas do not conform to reality, and reality will be the thing that will hold you accountable to it. But, you know, just...
At the same time, if I call something like a Walter Weinstein or a C. Cosby, that doesn't mean I actually, like you gotta know that I don't actually think dolphins should be persecuted to the full extent of the law.
Prosecuted. But persecuted also works here, right?
But I can understand the other side. Because, like, imagine you're a scientist or a marine biologist, and every time you log online, you see people saying dolphins are evil, dolphins deserve to die, all dolphins are and...
How many of these are actually serious, though? This goes back to, like, the whole, like, water pancake thing we saw earlier with the fucking like the stingray, where it's like, again, the guy in response to the Steve Irwin death is like, should I punch the stingray to show that Steve Irwin still got shooters out here, right? And then a year later, the fucking performance art finally comes to its conclusion of, again, the cycle of violence has been ended and we must learn how to forgive, right? Like, this man, this person, this poster is obviously being a shit poster, right? It's funny. It's a really funny joke, but he is obviously telling a joke, right? This is not meant to be taken as on its face the facts, right? And again, it's like, how many of these people, like John Bandwagoner, Bandwagoner is in the fucking name, right? Like, or old man yells at clouds, right? Dolphins are evil. Or the real fake expert, dolphins are the ditties of the sea. Look, man, almost certainly none of these are actually serious. Maybe they are, but he hasn't shown any evidence for me to believe that any of these are actually serious. And like, this is very clearly a shitpost. Right? You gotta learn how to, again, discern when people are being serious versus when people are just being a shitter.
For every, like, 10 people that say that, maybe 3 or 4 link one of my videos. Replay that interaction enough times, and of course, eventually you would just think, oh yeah, this guy doesn't know what he's talking about, fear-mongering mother. So that's why the last couple of years, I don't know if
yeah, but that's a skill issue, right? It's like, oh wait, but I don't have time to watch this. Bitch, why are you commenting on it? Right? It's like literally the whole thing where it's like, oh yeah, they didn't actually read the book. Like, then why are they complaining about it? They're complaining about it because they're fucking moral busybodies that are like too lazy to actually do their research. That's why they're complaining about it. But Yeah. So yeah, I can understand the frustration, but that you know, if an academic is not actually willing to sit down and watch a video that they're about to criticize, I don't really trust how much of an academic they actually are. Right? You're going to tell me you're going to sit down and you're going to read these papers, but then when someone actually comes out with something that you might have to rebut, you're not even going to watch the video? Absolutely no. Fuck off, right?
Y'all notice, but I've tried to be more careful with the way I frame these videos. I'm still gonna get my jokes off, that's just how I talk. I'm pretty sure I call this an Ice Cube missile crisis, but that's why I've been wanting to say this, specifically in this video. I've always been fascinated by leopard seals, especially the aspects that make them dangerous. In fact, whenever I'm emphasizing how dangerous an animal is, it's coming from a place of admiration. At the same time, they already get demonized crazy, so you do have to be careful with how you walk that line. Ultimately, I think there's a middle ground where you can be entertaining enough to be an entry point for people to be interested in zoology, while also being fair to the animal. And I think it's also fair to ask for a little bit of grace whenever I'm calling something like a threat to humanity, but I'll say it again.
That is actually a really cool shot. Holy shit.
Dolphins, chimps, hippos, otters, sea leopards, and all others aren't evil. They're just animals trying to make it to the next day without the human privilege of morality. But that's gonna do it for this video. Drink water, hug your mother, don't touch seals, and I'm gonna
Yeah, I don't know what the fuck that guy was thinking.
see y'all in the next one.
Yeah, these are beautiful animals. It's so odd that people find these like scary. There was one picture in this entire video where I was like, okay, that's off-putting. But it's like everything else, like this is a lovely animal. All right, so now that we're at the very end, I need to catch up with chat. Let's see where we were. Okay, here we go. Captain Rudy says, a few years ago, there was a TikTok girl who went viral after she turned to social media for help because, no joke, she had a pet fennec fox and she was feeding an all-vegan diet and could not for the life of her figure out, or should I say admit, why her pet fox was emaciated and sickly. Those people are evil. Those people who like feed obligate carnivores like vegan diets, those people are just like objectively evil people. Let's see. Captain Rudy says she said she took it to a vet and the vet recommended she feed the fox meat the way God intended, and people on social media said the same thing. She called them all judgmental assholes and tried to gaslight everyone into thinking the foxes can survive on a vegan diet. Well, I mean, she's gonna get her pet killed, but you know, that's her own damn fault, right? She just doesn't want the idea that people are judging her, and so she reacts aggressively because she thinks that like when people are correcting her that people are judging her, which they may or may not be, but you know, women in particular don't like being judged, right? Sir Squinty Lion says, we out here leering. Yes, we definitely are. And as I said, I think that the criticisms that like National Geographic had to like address are completely unfair and completely disconnected from reality, right? Like, it was absolutely ridiculous that he had to actually make this explanation video, because anyone with common sense, I suspect, could have actually pieced all that together. But again, you know, something about common sense not being all that common anymore, right? Let's see. Captain Rudy says, have you seen the video National Geographic did about dolphins doing a puff fast? Yes, with the tetrodotoxin. Yeah, the tetrodotoxin. Yes, I have. I knew about that beforehand, but it's like, it's still really funny. Captain Rudy says, it's the same people who comment on an article after only reading the headline. Exactly. Z Hunter 27 says, like the AI haters. Yes. Oh my god, speaking of which, I will be doing videos commenting on reaction videos to technology videos and sillier to AI. So because there's a lot of other things that are criticized for the exact same reason AI is criticized, and it's equally stupid when those are criticized as well. I might get a little bit of heat for one of them because I am going to defend one technology that is a little bit controversial, but I think is completely misunderstood. Captain Rudy says, all the AI haters can slop on these nuts, right? I will be sure to link them to you then. Let's see. Z Hunter said, agreed, everything has its diet, and generally, if it has pointy teeth, it eats the Angus, right? Going to lurk here, here to support you. Have a good one. Thank you. Well, I'm about to go and find someone to raid, so... oh, thank you for lurking on Kick as well, but I'm actually about to get off. This was the last video of today, so I... bit of timing, right? So I'm gonna find someone to raid. Hold on, let's see who's actually on. I actually have to get to the thing though. Okay, let's go to, if I can actually type. Oh shit, I forgot to end the episode. So that'll be the end of this episode. Y'all have a lovely day, and if y'all are watching this on YouTube, I'll see you in the next video.